Hi, my name is Barbara Harris Whitfield, and I just have to tell you, until this happened, I was an atheist. I had been a lot as a child and had given up any idea of any kind of God, because if there was a God, God would have not allowed what happened to me. At 32 years old, this was in 1975. What happened was my back was fractured and they were going to give me a spinal fusion operation. Now, a month before that, they put me in a full body cast from my armpits to my knees to help me to understand, first of all, how I was going to live for 6 months after in this body cast. And second of all, they were testing to see if immobilizing my spine would take the pain away, and it did. So we had a lot of hope that this surgery was going to work. But way back in 1975, the back surgery, the fusion, was much, much more everything than it is today, because today they can just do two little Band-Aid cuts. Back then, I had huge incisions where they went in, and they had told me that the surgery was going to last 2 hours, and it wound up lasting 5.5 hours. And by the time I got into surgery, I had lost about 35 or 40 pounds. I was on a lot of drugs for the 2 years, a lot of pain pills, a lot of muscle relaxants. Some of them were Valium. And I realized that I wasn't being a mother to my children anymore, and I wasn't being a wife to my husband. I was just this pain that was taking a lot of pills. So the surgery became my hope. And so I went into the hospital and had the surgery and was totally shocked when I woke up in this awesome bed. And about 2 days after the surgery, maybe it was a day or maybe it was 2 days, I'm not sure, but this all happened within a matter of the first week. But in the middle of the night, I woke up out in the hall. Now, I knew I couldn't wake up out in the hall because I was suspended in that bed and I couldn't move. But I looked up and down the hall and I didn't see anyone. It was nighttime, the lights were dimmed. So I started to move back into the bedroom of the hospital, and realized that I was nose level with a speaker that I knew when I came in was mounted to the ceiling. So I knew something strange was up, and what was really up was me. And I moved back into the room and I saw my body lying in the circle bed. And I just started to chuckle because they had put tape around my nose when they put a tube down my throat, and I looked really weird. But it didn't bother me. I was okay with that. It was like, for the first time in months, I wasn't feeling any pain. I wasn't feeling the confusion of the drugs. I felt totally clear. And I looked down at her, and her certainly wasn't me. Me was up near the ceiling, and that was fine because I was peaceful. And the next thing I knew, I was in total darkness. As a researcher, the word tunnel is about the best word we can come up with. But I have to tell you, everything I'm describing to you right now, it took me years to get the words. And it took me a long time interviewing other near-death experiencers to hear how they were describing it, to be able to put together something that really has no words. So in this total darkness, I was trying to see if there were any barriers. And what I could see was energy churning in the darkness. And out of that churning was coming lighter colors, lighter shades of gray that were moving down to collect and form what was the light. But I didn't look at the light. I was looking at this energy churning. And I mean, it took me a while, but I decided that that was the Holy Spirit. That the Holy Spirit was in the darkness, and this is what the Holy Spirit does. It pulls light out of the darkness. And as I was watching this, I started moving. And as I was moving through this tunnel, I could feel that energy like swirling around me. I had this feeling of this vortex that was embracing me and that was moving me down. And it was moving me down to my grandmother. I used to call her my Bubby. And she had been dead for 14 years. And I had never once thought of her existing beyond her death. And there we were back together again. And she drew me in to this lush warmth. My grandmother was about 4'11", and she had this huge bosom. And as I moved into it, it was like I could be a little child again, being hugged by her. And as I did that, as we did that, we re-experienced all 19 years we were on the planet together. I saw every scene when I was with her. And at the same time, I realized she was seeing it too. And I could feel in my heart what I had felt at the time. And I could see all the scenes. And I knew she could too, that we were both re experiencing our memories of each other in this lifetime. You know, to just give you an example, I must have been 3 or 4 years old. And I was there on a Friday alone with her. And there was a lot of expectation in the air because the whole family was coming for dinner that night. So she asked me to help her prepare the meal. And she pulled over this wooden chair from the dining room table and she put me up on it. I mean, I can still feel her hands lifting me and putting me on the chair. And then she came around from behind me and she had her hands in front of me to protect me because we were standing at the stove and there was this huge pot of boiling water. And she was showing me how to take the mixture that she had made. And it was a gefilte fish mixture. And she would put a little bit in my hand and I would roll it. And then we would drop it in the boiling water. And I can still, as I'm telling you this now, I can still smell what that smelled like. It was a very, very fishy smell. And she was helping my hands to drop it in so I wouldn't burn myself. When we got to the end of her memories, where she died, I started to move away from her. I had no control over any of this. I was being moved away from her. But we both knew in our hearts that she would be waiting for me and she would be there when I come back again. And it looked like that scene was in a bubble. And then I looked out into space and there was another bubble that was way up on the left. And it was me at about a year old lying in my crib crying. And I looked back and forth a couple times, confused, and then thought, well, I don't want to be her anymore. I'm going with the baby. And as I started to move towards the baby, this energy wrapped itself around me. This was more than what I had seen the first time. The only way, it took me years, actually, to use the word God. But when I heard when I saw the movie Star Wars and they were talking about the Force, I knew this was the Force. And the Force was wrapping itself around me and the Force was in me and the Force was me. And as we went to the baby, I realized that I could feel what I was feeling and I could see what I was seeing through God's eyes. And as we moved to this baby that was crying, it became a full cloud of thousands of bubbles, just this huge cloud of bubbles. And in every bubble was another scene from my life. What I saw as a child that I had not remembered was the abuse, like I was there again. I could feel it. I could feel what I was feeling, but I could also feel what my mother was feeling. She had been through a lot. She had a much worse childhood even than I did. And she was totally frustrated. And she was on a lot of pills and she was always sick. As I went through this, I could hear myself saying, no wonder, no wonder. And this no wonder meant to me, no wonder you are the way you are. Look what was done to you as a child. And it wasn't as though I could condemn my mother for what was going on. It was more like I was living it through her heart and her eyes too. And she, the poor thing, I mean, she didn't know what she was doing. She was so drugged. And I watched myself growing up. I watched myself meet my husband. I watched us date for 4 years. We got married. I watched my 3 children come into the world. The whole thing, it was all there. Like it took 32 years. This was not something, I might have been out for maybe 20 minutes to an hour, but the experience of it in eternity, like 32 years. And then I was back behind the nurse's station and I could see and I could hear them. And they were talking about my case because when my nurse did find me and I was unconscious when she found me, she was so upset that they sent her home early. And so I heard that and then I was back in my body. And the 2 nurses that I was listening to in the nurse's station came in to check on me. And I said to them, you know, I left the bed again. And they said, no, honey, you hallucinated. I said, no, I left the bed. And I know that my nurse was very upset when she found me. And please call her because you sent her home early. Please call her and tell her I'm okay and I'm not angry with her. And I got sedated again. So a couple weeks later, I was out of the circle bed and they put this full body cast on me from my armpits to my knees. And I was going to live like that for 6 months. When I came home and I crawled into bed, I was lucky enough to be able to spend all those months thinking about what had happened, going over it and over it and over it, and putting together all these different elements of why I was the way I was and how I could be a better person. And the one book in particular that I wrote in 1994 after I stopped working at the university, called Spiritual Awakenings, has all of the research that Bruce Grayson and I did for that 6 years, including explaining this energy system called Kundalini and how it's activated, but certainly not completed in these kinds of spiritual experiences, but how to go on and work on it to clear up all these blocks that are going through our body. Then I have other books on different facets. Like I have one called Final Passage, and that's 14 stories of helping people die. If you want to read any of my books, and they're all on my website, I have all of Charlie's books on my website too. It's called barbara-whitfield.com. If you have any questions and you want to write me through my website, there's a way to do it. So I'm always happy to answer questions. And understand that once you get on this journey, it's a journey without distance to a goal that has never changed. And our journey is into our own heart. Our journey is into being who we really are, being our authentic self, not what other people want us to be. I wish you well on your journey, and it's an adventure, but get ready for the synchronicities. I believe, this is mine, and many other near-death experiencers believe the same thing, that these synchronicities are God, angels guiding us, Holy Spirit guiding us, Ruach HaKadosh guiding us, Kundalini guiding us. Whatever brand name you want, it's all the same. It's all spirit. It's all God. So anyway, good luck and bless you on your journey. Staring lost up at the sky.